Good afternoon, students, parents, family members, board members. There's a weird kind of synchronicity happening in all of these speeches today, and you might suspect that maybe they all uploaded their speeches and then I just ChatGPT'd mine. But someone actually suggested that I ChatGPT this speech, and I was thinking, I think the one thing ChatGPT can't do is ramble, and so everybody's gonna know. My students call it tangents. I call it spontaneous sightseeing in familiar territory. I'm extremely honored to have been asked to speak here today. Graduation keynotes are usually given by winners, famous people, successful people. Does anyone remember that TV show, The Biggest Loser? Well, you've asked him to give your graduation keynote address. But more on that in a minute. First, I want to take a second to mention a book written by the famous Dr. Jordan Peterson. Probably a book given to at least some graduates here and there. His book is bluntly and famously titled 12 Rules for Life. I myself have never read it, which won't surprise many of you given its title. But it's not because I look down on the book or the need for it. It's just that I have another set of rules for life. The Pacifica Student Handbook has more than 12 rules for life. And as our mission is to help you and ourselves think and live well, I thought I'd mention a few of them. One rule for life is, at relaxed arm length standing, skirts must not be shorter than fingertips extended. Seems like a good rule. A life principle, really. Both shoes and socks must be in good repair and should reflect the purpose of the dress code. That's another good one. Hair must be only one natural color with a style that upholds the intent of the dress code. Well, this is my natural color. Hats and bandanas? No. Hoods? Only at graduation. Well, I'm happy to inform you that tomorrow and most of the rest of your days is free dress. Although that really means you just get to pick your uniform, I suppose. I'm excited to celebrate this great day with all of you. It does feel a little weird to have you behind me. I keep thinking you all just went on a mass bathroom break. I expect you back in no more than 30 minutes. Students, in so many ways, I admire you, all of you. But I don't envy you, any of you. And I'll tell you why. I know what you're feeling, at least most, if not all of you. You're thinking of all the accomplishments you have, all the things you are, and you're headed out to trade on those things. And you're excited about what those skills and knowledge and charisma and charm will buy you, what your life will be like. In fact, you've already traded on them just to get into the colleges you chose. And you're going to go to those colleges and get more things you can trade on, new skills, new knowledge, and you're going to take those to yet more buyers. It's hard not to think of the world as transactional, as even contractual, when you're always signing contracts, getting paid for services rendered, being lauded for achievements. As Charlie says to Willie in The Death of a Salesman, all you've got in this world is what you can sell, and the funny thing is you're a salesman and you don't know that. Willie replies, I always like to think differently, that if a man was impressive and well-liked, Willie fails to notice he's just listing more things you can sell. This is probably the most natural way of viewing life, the world. I myself have been in the selling business most of my life. And as with Willie, the product I was selling was always me. I didn't want to buy me, but I hoped you would. And the more sales I closed and the more customers I had, the closer I came to believing I was worth buying. But it was always an asymptotic approach. It's for the math teachers. A line of satisfaction that would never be reached, no matter how many people I convinced that I was worth their time. One of the many problems with that kind of living is that you never let yourself be. You're always becoming. You're always on your way somewhere, because whatever you are isn't enough. If you happen to be a high achiever, the trap is even more deceptive. Applause becomes a drug, an addiction, a validation that makes you feel okay, that your lies are true, but that never lasts very long. As you know, I teach and I love philosophy, but one of the more solid truths I've learned in my life is that I'm an expert on nothing so much as my own story. After all, I was there. But didn't you always have a story, Mr. Freeborn? I guess so. I certainly had stories, which my daughters were always asking me to tell, and my office mates were always asking me to not. But the story of who I was one I was always writing about myself to sell to you. In other words, there were all kinds of parts of it that weren't really true or weren't true anymore. That happens when you turn 50, I guess. A number of years ago, in a particularly rough time of life, when the life I'd thought I'd built for myself, keyword myself, seemed to be falling apart in a very palpable way. For some reason, I was inspired to sit down with my journal and start a page with the heading, "How many lies have I felt bound to live?" I listed 12, with titles such as "The Cultured Lie," "The Literary Lie," "The Religious Lie," "The Moral Lie," "The Teacher Lie," "The Intellectual Lie," and my favorite, "The Ninja Lie." Then I wrote in plain language the lie in that category that I wanted myself or other people to believe, how that lie affected the way I behaved, and especially how that lie caused fear and anxiety in my life. I still have that journal. I remember telling my wonderful priest about this exercise over coffee, and even read to him parts of the entry, and he nodded and said, "Good start." What was the point of that exercise? Not just to correct false advertising, but to stop selling. What's the alternative? Other than becoming a recluse, it seems the alternative is to start offering. That's different. It sounds the same, but it's different. When I sell something to you, I only care that you buy. I don't care quite so much about you as I do about your purchase. When I offer you something, well, maybe I'm actually thinking about you. And I can tell you that is strangely freeing. And what I'm offering you today is the most solid thing I have, a bit of my story. And in a miraculous way, my story is starting to have a story, the more I offer it. On a recent Wednesday evening, my priest mentioned to me there was a man who was struggling that my particular story might help. I said, "Oh yes, I think so-and-so texted me about him. We've already spoken." He said, "No, it's another guy." We both smiled, and he said, "There's a line forming. For good or ill, Dan, you've become the church loser." I said, "Thank God." It's in this strange way that I've seen God spin the straw of my failures into gold, into the core of my identity, in fact, to turn that identity over to God and watch him do something with it. My story has given me an absolute gift, a faith not only in what God will save me from, but a front row seat to what he already is saving me from. To be honest, my faith these days doesn't require a whole lot of faith. But at least in my case, the biggest gift God has ever given me was the gift of desperation. All the things I thought that were working for me, all that I was selling to the world that I wanted to impress, that whole mode of life just stopped working. There was nowhere else to turn, nothing left to do but just let it all go. Let all my illusions about myself burn down and ask God, "What's next? You call it." That was the beginning of my exit from the world. Why am I talking about this in a graduation speech? It's a good question. Because this occasion celebrates your emergence into the world. That's a wonderfully vague word, the world. The Christian New Testament uses the word to mean something more or even other than the physical earth, or people in general, or society, as students love to quote, or the sum total of things happening on the globe. It refers to a way of being. the way that comes naturally to fallen, broken humans. What is that way of being? Well, you've seen it forever and all over. You're part of it, at least some of the time. It's what we've been talking about. It's the mode of being of transaction. It is quid pro quo. It's for you, Scobie. This for that, a way of being that is always about exchange, fair or unfair. If you believe in and belong to the world, the most you hope for is fair exchange. But you will get a lot of unfair exchange. And people will say very wise things about it to comfort you in such times, such as, it is what it is, or that's life, or nobody said life is fair, or if you're in California, you might see it on a bumper sticker, life's a beach. If you stay in that world, that way of being long enough, you will be tempted to give a lot of unfair exchange. Just to balance the books, you might say, for all the injustice you've suffered. And thus the world goes on. In that world, in that mode of being, all you've got is what you can sell. But you can see where this is going now. The New Testament speaks a good bit about the world. And when the term is used in the sense we've been talking about, it's never good. Here are a few examples jammed together for a bit of a picture. In John 2:15, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. Or Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Or 1 John 5:19, we know that we are from God and the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. Or James 4:4, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And the Gospel of John, Christ says, I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So how do you be in the world, but not of it? By now, everyone at Pacifica knows how much I love cults. I find them infinitely interesting and frequently tempting, and I just want to belong. The world itself is a kind of cult. When you are in that mode of being, it is hard, if not impossible, to imagine any other way of being. It is a kind of mind control. The world is not free thinking. It runs on the clockwork of a determined diabolical logic of exchange. It is that to which we conform. Exchange is calculated. Only charity and mercy are spontaneous. The freest people in the world were and are saints. As St. Athanasius once put it, Christ came not to make bad men good, but to make dead men live. G.K. Chesterton describes this kind of freedom in his Life of St. Francis. Consider this longish but necessary quotation from that book concerning the mode of being of the early Franciscan monks. Quote, even in his relations with his chosen leader, he was in one sense relatively free compared with the world around him. He was obedient, but not dependent. And he was as free as the wind. He was almost wildly free in his relation to that world around him. The world around him was, as has been noted, a network of feudal and family and other forms of dependence. The whole idea of St. Francis was that the little brothers should be like little fishes who could go freely in and out of that net. They could do so precisely because they were small fishes, and in that sense, even slippery fishes. There was nothing that the world could hold them by. There was nothing that the world could hold them by. For the world catches us mostly by the fringes of our garments, the futile externals of our lives. In imagining the life of this sort of visionary vagabond, we may already get a glimpse also of the practical side of that asceticism which puzzles those who think themselves practical. A man had to be thin to pass always through the bars and out of the cage. He had to travel light in order to ride so fast and so far. It was the whole calculation, so to speak, of that innocent cunning that the world was to be outflanked and outwitted by him and be embarrassed about what to do with him. You could not threaten to starve a man who was ever striving to fast. You could not ruin him and reduce him to beggary, for he was already a beggar." End quote. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying anything as silly as that you shouldn't work for a living or that you shouldn't try to achieve things. It's all in how you do it, what your motives are, where your heart is. The trick of the world is that it robs you of peace as you're grasping for the thing you think will bring you peace. By contrast, there's a tremendous peace in feeling, in knowing that you are where you are supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing, regardless of the rewards or the salary. There's a prayer that I and probably millions of others say every morning. It goes like this: God, I offer myself to thee to build and to do with as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. If you can keep that prayer in mind, and I sometimes don't, that's a place from which you can offer yourself, your time, your gifts, rather than merely sell them. Let praise and achievements be a surprise that you hardly have time to look up and notice because you're busy, focused on other, more lasting things, namely other people and your role in God's will for them. I know many people at Pacifica who do this far better than I do. Thank God for them. I continue to learn from them. I only claim progress, not perfection. Zig Ziglar, the famous salesman, becoming less famous, I suppose, with every decade, but this will keep working for the next 30 or 40 graduations. Zig Ziglar once said that Christ was the greatest salesman who ever lived. I beg to differ. Christ wasn't selling, he was offering. He was offering himself. So as you leave here this evening, rightly excited about your emergence into the world, ask yourself what you have to offer, not what you have to sell. And I wish for you now and in your exciting future that you will find yourself where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing. It has been my genuine pleasure to know you and learn with you. Congratulations, seniors.